I will introduce myself. I am Emma Couch. I am from the Community Media Training Organisation, the National Training Manager. And we are very proud to support this webinar series from Technorama. So Technorama Tuesdays is a monthly webinar series that hopes to bring the big wide world of broadcast technology to anyone who has an interest in it. It's not solely for technicians, it's for anyone who would like to help out in their station in that area or just get an understanding of it so they may be able to use that knowledge somewhere down the track. This evening we are very happy to have Peter Gill join us, who is a CMTO trainer, we are very proud to say, and also has 50 years experience in the radio industry, so a wealth of knowledge. And Peter, I dare say you would have experienced the turmoil over Christmas over the years about people having to fill in program slots for people who need that well-earned break.
Those sorts of things happen all year round, which is the amazing thing about community radio. It's so hard because you're not paying folks, you're relying upon them giving you the time, and they have their own personal needs, which varies what the stations actually can do.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's a fantastic way to frame the need for this kind of information for people out there. So that's fantastic. I'm just going to give you, Peter, a little bit of time to introduce yourself and your background, and then we'll go to a quick poll to figure out who we've got in the room this evening. So take it away.
Bit difficult to try and sum up 50-odd years in a few moments, unfortunately. It's very, very difficult. Started out as basic announcer, wound up going to Shepparton as morning announcer, on to 2KA Katoomba, which is no longer now been bought by other people and name changed. Assistant manager there for about 3 years. Then went through to Tamworth, which was the last major stint for me, just on 24 years there from announcing and then moving up to being production manager and program manager through that period, recording engineer on the Country Music Awards for the 24 years that I was there. And from there then took some time off and went and managed the Australian Music Top 40, the charts prior to ARIA for a short period, while still doing community radio there, and then decided to retire and move up to here to Cairns.
Fantastic. And that's where we were lucky enough to nab you as a CMTO trainer.
Yes. And the never-nevers, the far north parts of Australia.
Oh, it must be really beautiful up there this time of year. Or is it quite muggy?
A little bit muggy, just starting to get that way. 31 degrees at the moment outside.
Oh, lovely. I'd trade that in. So what I'm going to do, and thank you very much for that introduction, Peter, I'm just going to fire off a quick poll because I really would like to know who's in the room tonight and also how you're feeling this evening. So I'll just launch this poll. You should see something coming up on your screen.
Yep.
Yes, fantastic. So just a couple of questions here to get a feel for the room. Oh, is it coming up for anyone else? No one seems to be.
It's coming up on my screen, but I'm not able to.
Oh, here we go.
The squares.
Maybe that's because you're I've made you a panelist.
Okay, that's fine. I'll get rid of that screen then.
Oh, we've got some good response rates for people feeling good this evening. That's fantastic to see. 50% have voted. A few are still getting their votes in. 50% for both a tie for feeling amazing and good. Let's see if we can get amazing up, guys. We'll get amazing into the lead. I'm very happy that no one's to the point where they don't want to talk about their day. That's very exciting. We've got good in the lead. Good in the lead by 60%. I feel like I'm calling the horse races. And the primary role that we have in the room tonight is neck and neck management and technician. So a pretty good mix there, a couple of board members and a couple of broadcasters. So when I was setting up this webinar, I was asking Peter, what would the process be if you were a broadcaster and you did want to sort of bring some of the ideas produced out of this webinar back to your station. I imagine that board and management are the way to go. The top-down approach to try and, because it's quite a project to implement a new automation system, upgrade or use it for different purposes.
The more I think about it, the simpler it is.
Oh, good.
Yeah, one of the things we'll be doing on the way through is the fact that community radio needs people all the time, or it has programs requires people all the time.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem, to be able to keep continuous local on-air product going to air. In this way, you can turn around and do that 24 hours a day. You can spot material through the 24-hour period and be able to control it in any way that you like.
Mm.
And that's the sort of thing that radio stations really need. Is they need continuity of programming. You need to have steady programs to be able to build up audiences. You have one program comes in, it needs a lot of bounce to be able to bring it back up again or promote it. This way, if you're looking at the whole station over the whole of the day, you're now making it much easier to promote that image.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Well, good. I'm glad we've been able to further that discussion. So, okay, I'm going to leave the polling here. 64% of you feel really good, which is great, and we've got a really lovely even mix of the roles that we have at the station. I will let you know that this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared with you post webinar, so you'll be able to find it on the CMTO website. Okay, excuse me. I'm going to stop sharing these results. This is a new format of webinar in that it will be 30 minutes in length, a bit different to the traditional 1 hour webinar. So we'll be wrapping it up at 7 o'clock. We will leave about 5 minutes at the end for questions. So as I said at the start, pop them in the Q&A box in the panel that is around the video screen, or pop them in the chat box and I'll collect them and direct them back to Peter. So without further ado, Peter, I'm going to let you take the reins and share your wise information about automation. So if you'd like to share your screen there.
Okay, I'll have to do that from this end then. The yes button, I hope, will that work now?
It may
I'm not sure which ones of those we want. They want the screen 2, is it?
Yes, it should come up there. There we go. Just start sharing it for you.
Okay. The PowerPoint's not up there, though. I'm just wondering which screen that may be on.
It's on the notes screen of the PowerPoint. So not the main one, but
here we are.
Yeah.
Now we're right.
Okay. So, yeah, but first we just wanted to learn about the experience that you've had in making this work for you, and answer the question that you've got up there. How do we solve this age-old problem? Solve age-old problems.
What I'm trying to do here is to work through the things that have happened to me in my experiences so that we can use those for other people to be able to bounce on. My first association with computers was back in 1979. The radio station in Tamworth was struggling to be able to get finances because of the advent of television, and newspapers struggling for the dollars. So they were trying to cut back on their costing and brought back a chap who was very keen on automation at that time. My point, though, was that I was doing the integration between the software, the scheduling, the music styles, and being able to put it into the hardware and working with the technicians through those stages. And that's where I'm still working in those sorts of areas, more so than the actual soldering of wires or working out of the systems. I'd like to go back to the trip that we had to Sydney to be able to find out about automation. And one of the station's first ones in Sydney that did it was 2SM. They did it from approximately 1976 through to 1980. And the two major people there, the breakfast announcer and afternoon ones, were Ian McRae and Ronnie Sparks. Ronnie was the one who taught me through the system they had. He did not want to work past 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know what he had organised for 5, but he didn't want to do it. So what he did then was to turn around and voice track that last hour of his show, which meant that the computer played the music tracks for him. They played the adverts for him. All he had to do was to put down the pieces of voice that he would normally do between each one of those items. Ian McRae followed him very quickly, saying, I don't want to get up early in the morning, so I want to automate the first hour of my show and then go live from there. And the idea was not to be able to see the difference between the two medias. This was the equipment that they were using, and the first system that I ever saw this was automation in America, and here, I don't know how many of you remember the old cartridges that used to be used for adverts to be able to stick them in the machine and press the buttons. The center racks here are cartridges, and the computer would then play the tape to be able to play the music, pick up one of the cartridges mechanically, put it into a cartridge machine to play it. There were all sorts of faults in the system. In America, they used to splice the music tracks together, and in many cases, it was both key and tempo that they were doing to make sure the stations were damn near perfect from what they did. But this was the way that automation started in Australia. Now, looking at the situation that we were talking about, each station has to supply programming that meets its license requirements. It's not easy to be able to do that. People often come into your radio station and say, I can put on a program that's going to attract a large audience, but it may not fit what you particularly need. Finding programs to fit that license becomes therefore increasingly difficult. Allocating programs to times that are suitable. So often a program that somebody might want to run at 3 o'clock in the afternoon would be something that perhaps should be running at 10 o'clock at night time. So again, your programming becomes difficult. Finding the resources, both the volunteers and material for those programs, is difficult. And making sure the station itself has the needs for that. Now, here is a major stumbling block, of course, is the volunteer. The time that the volunteer can work for you, the time that they can give up, the things that may change in their life, exams, as we say, Christmas holiday breaks, illnesses in the family events that might happen. So therefore, it is difficult to be able to maintain programming without having the people to be able to do that. Now, the usual answer that I've heard time and time again is to record a spare program or to record your program ahead of time. It means that you need to have the facilities to be able to do that. You could lock a program in, record it, but then there may be an emergency. You may need to be able to change it for some particular reason. And that's not always possible. In most cases, a great annoyance to the person who's put the work time in. You can have an assistant who can work with you with the computers in a live program environment or in a recorded environment. In both cases, you do have help by using computers to do that. You can also work from home and you can also work from the station, both with voice tracking as well as being able to insert material or move it backwards and forwards through lots and lots of free programs. By using an assistant to do the bulk of your program, the way that Bonnie Sparks did and the way that Ian McRae did, there was an opportunity for somebody else to turn around and record the weather details, the traffic information, and the competition results that you might get. Now, what I thought we'd do here is actually have a look at an example of how these sort of things come together. So I'm hopeful that this will come up on screen. It has. Now, if we look firstly at your internet, at your normal, if you look at your filing systems in whatever system you may have. So here what we've done is we've divided material up into directories.
I'll just stop you there, Peter, because I'm not quite sure if others can see a different screen, but I'm still on the PowerPoint screen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'll just ask
go down to
anyone to jump in and see if they're experiencing a similar event.
What if I kill that one then and we go back to this would be the sharing screen now. I'm not too sure as to which one that might be in the...
Yeah, I can see someone running along a beach, which looks very lovely.
Oh, that's the background. Okay, so that's the screen I've got up there. Now, what we need to do is to change that. So whereabouts are the buttons to do that one? This is the next trick.
If the panel, the little panel that should pop up if you move your mouse, you go to share again, and it should pop up with a few more options, whatever screen you have available to you to share, and you can select.
No, I'm not seeing that one that I had before.
How bizarre. I think, so the one that you're on with the backdrop, if you...
That's on that screen there?
Yeah, can you select...
Yes, I can. Yeah. I can bring that over there. It's fine. Drag this one across onto there.
Back. Yeah.
Yep. Done.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, so now this is the music selection that I have on my computer that I've put aside for the radio station. So each one of these are music categories that people can work with. And you can do that on your system at home before you actually take it into your radio station to be able to work out what you want to do. Are you running a metal program? Perhaps you're doing a dubstep program of some kind. So that each case you can turn around and allocate what you need. You can divide these further so that within each you could have a new release, all the number ones of a particular era. In each case, you have a category that you can work with. Now I'll bring up the actual program itself. So again, we'll drag that one across to there. And from here, it's a simple matter then of being able to go into here to create a new category. So you say now that we want, I'm going to have to drag most of these across here. Say a rock program. So you now select the folder that contains the rock music, which on mine is very, very small and probably the last one, I think, from memory. As you see, what we do with the top 50 is we actually file them away so that they can become new again, when we bring them back into the system. So now the rock category has actually been set up. In here, we can see those rocks, those particular tracks. Again, I'll have to drag this one over for you. So that's there.
That beach scene is so idyllic. It's just lovely.
It's a standard Windows one. I haven't bothered to change it since I got the computer. So what it's done now in the rock category in the program itself, it has now selected all of the tracks that you have set aside to play as rock songs. You could set these up at home, take them into the station, put them on the system, or use some of the systems like TeamViewer or some similar to be able to transfer them from your home computer, or be able to put them in at the station itself. Each one of these tracks, it is now set aside so that it can select from these. So that when we go into the next stage of it, so we've got rock categories and other music tracks here. So now what we can do is if we wanted to do a rock program on air, we could simply turn around and form a rotation, which we would call, and again, move it across. Simply call it rock. And in there, therefore, we would now insert 16 rock tracks for the hour.
All
That's your
right.
clock.
Fantastic.
So now every time it went to find that hour, it will now turn around and select tracks from the rock category. The program will turn around and look at what has been recently played and be able to work out when not to play it next.
So this is probably quite a silly question, but for a regular broadcaster who hasn't been showed to do this by their station, they would need station input from the management to achieve this, wouldn't they? To coordinate.
What you can do and what we've done is have somebody within the staff and they can turn around and put the music in for them.
Okay.
And so once you've actually got the library, like 300 tracks in a rock category for 1 hour per day, 1 hour per day would probably last you several months. And because of the rotating of those tracks, they certainly wouldn't get old or irritate people by being heard too often.
Yes. Okay. Great.
So now what we can look at within these is what we do. So what we've done here is we've said within the hour, like you do with a clock, is the first track in the hour, second track, third, fourth. So we'll try and find a current top 40 track or top 50 track. This is what we do, which is the alternative material, which is our marketplace. Then an Australian track, there's your 25% Australian. And then classics. So in here you could have tracks of the 70s, 80s, 90s, zeros, number ones, novelty songs within your hour. So you plan the hour that you want to run to air. So that's each hour that you've got. So that's just transforming your clock system back into a way of being able to pick the tracks that you need for your program.
As opposed to just running the jukebox. for a
Exactly.
few hours at random, in which you get those jumping from heavy metal to country rock and everything in between.
Exactly. So this is what it's produced. This is an output at my home. This is not at the radio station at the moment that you're looking at. So here it's made the selections for me, and it's been able to separate the different things off for me. Yeah.
I was just going to say, is that your Aussie music selection? You've got some great Australian artists in there.
Well, yes, this is. And we've got a very highly sophisticated programming system in the back end of this, but all I want at this stage to try and show what you can do with the systems that are available. And I'm not saying just the one, I'm saying there's a whole stack of systems that are available, because we are running very short on time, unfortunately.
Yes, we are. Oh my gosh, it does get away on us. We've only got a few minutes left, but we'll push on.
Now, what happens with this particular program is that if the hour is short, we tell it where to be able to pick up the filler tracks. So in this case, we say we want an alternative. So that when it finishes there, if it's short, it will pick up an alternative track to add to the hour. If it's over, it will turn around and drop those last tracks.
And so where does the voice tracking fit into this, Peter?
Cool. Yes, no problem. So if we go back into that particular screen again. So let's say you want to back it out Silverchair. So in here, you simply right-click and go down to voice track. Now, this guy has got some very clever new tricks in here, which I haven't quite learned as yet. This will allow you to play the end of the song that you want to back announce.
Yep.
So you start playing that. You hit it to record your voice. You then record your voice into here. We can do a roughie here. That's the back end of Silverchair. When it gets up to the point where you want to talk, Silverchair's Pure Massacre on 101.9 Coast FM. Coming up, Dean Lewis. So now we have a voice track.
My gosh, fantastic. And it's very obviously 50 years in experience under your belt, because that was just very clean and wonderful.
Yeah, so it means you can do this in the current programs you've got, and you can, if you can load ahead the hours if you want to as well. The next playlist can be brought in so that you can work ahead through there. In the system that I showed you at the back end, which is this, the editor's available. So what happens is that it brings up what you've already created, and I've created a week ahead in most cases, so that within here you can turn around and insert a voice track if you wish. So therefore, you're now working ahead. You can do, for your Christmas breaks, you would have all of your music selected, and you can do that. You can actually bring up a file, drag into it the tracks that you want to play in those hours. You don't have to work by their system. You can do it a single track by track. Therefore, it's still an announcer choice to be able to do that, and then be able to record the voice tracks that you'd like.
And I understand that the support in station playlists in particular is quite good. You've told me
I
before.
said I wasn't trying to actually sell individual products. It's excellent, actually. It works out at about $80 a year, and he gets back to me within 48 hours. I've had problems with new releases that he's given me workarounds, and then he's turned around in the next release with a fix for it almost instantaneously.
It's fantastic, and I think that I, in particular, would definitely need that. So I'm just going to encourage anyone who has any questions about station playlist or automation software to pop them in the Q&A box or the chat box right now, because we are coming out to the close in this webinar, and I'll just let you show us the final few features, Peter.
Okay, well, the other thing obviously is commercials and materials like that to be able to put in. So if we find a folder in here, and I find the sponsorship folders, sponsors, there we are. Astute Finance is our biggest one, and they've got all sorts of variations in what they do on screens. So let's try and find name-only credits. So they're in there now. So Astute. So we've now got a spot group that now contains their sponsorships, and that can be a rotation of things as they do. Or in some cases, let's say you've got a $10 sponsorship, you could have all of your $10 ones in there to be rotated through. You can do all kinds of variations like that to be able to work with. So if we go back now to the actual rotations and schedules themselves, in the schedule system, which is this one here, in here is your hours that we worked with. You can actually put scheduled times in for your day, saying that you want a time at, say, hour number 1, and at 15 minutes past, you'd want a commercial break. And so, and here you go for a spot group, which would be astute. And then when you generate the log, those are then put in at 1:15, 2:15, whatever times you put in here to be able to do your adverts. And this is the cheapy way of being able to do rotations within these automated systems, is to be able to use spot groups. This one also has the opportunity of being able to generate both a music log or an advertising log separately and being able to import it, which is what I've done. I've made a spreadsheet that can actually create the input for that. So I can put that into a complete spreadsheet, copy that month after month, so I get similarities to be able to put through. And that then generates all of the adverts that we actually run and rotates them, community service spots, sweepers, all of those other things that we might need.
Fantastic. You know what? I actually think that what could be required as a follow-up to this webinar is a bit of, if we had it sat down and had a discussion about how you would approach something like this in your station, a bit of ideas around coordination with the broadcasters and how to go about implementing a system that is as robust as what you have implemented before. So I've just...
Wait till I get rid of this voice off.
Got in a chat box a yes please from Adam, which sounds very positive. Bill has asked, what format do the tracks need to be in?
Any format. He's got a whole variety of them. My preference is to use MP3s at 320 sample.
Yeah.
The simple reason is that they have the tags in them, and the tags are very, very useful. I can show you that on the screen. If I go into track list, and in here, if we do a right click and we go to the properties, these properties themselves, therefore, will show you when the tracks were played. As I said, I've just made this up. So it actually gives you the schedule date when they were played. The schedule restrictions, you can start them on a certain day at a certain time. So you can say that at night time you want ballads, daytime you want rock and roll. For the Christmas material, you can turn around and say, I want it to start on the 1st of December, go through the 25th of December. All of that information is in there. And also you can then put in for your APRA details, the information that you require in the first tabs on these screens. All of that information comes through in the MP3, but doesn't necessarily work in some of the other formats. So
there you go. You've got your reporting advantages there as well, which will be a news to a lot of people's, positive news to a lot of people's ears. John has asked, do you know if other tagged file formats are supported? For example, BWF with layer 2 codec.
Not sure on BWF. I know he's now done all the Apple ones. They came into force in the new version, which was actually released yesterday.
Oh, okay. So if anybody else has any questions, I encourage you to pop them in the chat box right now, or the Q&A. I think that it sounds like we've already got enough support for a part 2 to automation station.
Mm-hmm. Just on the screen for you there, this is Simeon, which I started playing with yesterday. Now, I don't have a full version of it, unfortunately. This will give you an idea of some of the more advanced packages whereby you've actually got 3 cartridge players at the top, so that you can play them and operate them as you would in the older style radio stations. And it's possible for these 3 players to come back off a start button on your console, so that it merely becomes an input for the announcer if they want to go through that method. The costs are vastly different, though, because of the additional cards that are required in the software.
Okay. I feel like, so Simeon, yes, and we spoke about that earlier today. What are some other software, what's the other popular software that's being used out there?
Well, I've actually worked at 4CA, so therefore I've gone to Next Gen, which is really expensive top-end one. Lots of editing facilities in that one that probably these days not necessarily used to their full extent. And that's a networking program. Most of these, by the way, can be also networked, so the feeds you're getting from elsewhere can cut services or restore services for you, or you can even run a network of stations from your station if you wish through these kind of programs.
And I should say that just on slight sidetrack to that one is that the community radio network programs can be thrown into, the CRN programs can be thrown into these systems and used in conjunction with what we've learned tonight.
Yeah, they can be done two ways, of course. Is you can record them onto your system when they're coming up the line in those time zones, and then these programs can pick it up out of that directory. All you need to do is to make sure that the directory names and what's in the system itself are similar, and that will therefore pick it up and play it at the time that you want to play it on there.
And in closing, would you like to give us your closing statement, Peter?
I'm having fun with it.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's the main thing. That really is. Cynthia Keith has asked if she wonders if other people out there are still using Jazzler, because Adam has mentioned that their station is looking to move to Jazzler. And here in WA, we are looking for someone who is really good at training Jazzler. So the CMTO is definitely in the kind of throes of organising an station playlist or playlist automation software resources, but I would direct people to the Community Tech Q&A page for questions like that, because that's always a great resource.
I know Triple H is still using Jazzler because it was there when I was working with them.
Okay, yeah, so that's Triple H in Northern Sydney.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Sylvia from the Torres Strait, who's tuned in, from Thursday Island, in fact, is saying their stations are using RCS. Having some dyslexia.
Very expensive top end. Yes, my goodness, there's some dollars involved in that one. RCS is actually the ones that did do next gen. They've started some new branches on what they're doing. I don't know how many improvements they have. I've only got the information on the older system that I worked with.
Oh, right. And Neil Turner has asked, can you program switches to live streams from the internet with station playlists?
Yes. You can mainly do it through timing. You can set up your timing so it will time out at the period that you need. You can put fade outs on tracks, or the old practice of being able to time out earlier in the hour and make sure it matches up to the hour when you do the switch.
Sylvia's chimed back in and asked, is Simian better than RCS?
Don't know. I've only just gone into Simian. Evan has just installed it at Fab FM in Port Douglas. So he was the one that I was relying upon, I suppose, as information. I'd heard of it in a couple of other stations as being a very good program. At this stage, I haven't been able to play with it enough to find out a little bit more about those things.
Yeah, Sylvia, I encourage you to type that question in the community Tech Q&A page, and I'm just madly jumping onto Facebook so I can send you the link so you can join up.
I can give you an idea on the pricing. Simian's around the $2,000 mark.
Yeah.
Then if you want natural log and natural music to feed into it, you're looking at about another 1.9, I think was roughly the figure, to be able to put that into it. That's your billing system and scheduling and music packages. So it becomes quite exy. Extra stations on it are also slightly more. I will give you a rough idea on what I've been using. The full thing is 986 Australian.
For station playlist.
And all the modules that go with it, the streaming material as well. And the service fee, as I said, it gets back to you within 48 hours, is $84 a year.
Okay.
Now, we're not using the full one. We're using $563 worth of program, and you've just seen the results of what we've been able to do.
Cynthia has asked, with the folders of music and the programs you put together, how do you actually transfer them to the station and plug them in?
Well, at the moment, I'm doing them two ways. I'm doing a lot of work from home. As you realise, I've got my own studio and been able to work the software from here as well. So I've been using TeamViewer to transfer small numbers of files, not large, because it's so slow, but being able to transfer that amount of music through. So with bulk stuff, I'll put it through, but with, say, the top 50 each week, I'll transfer it from my directory to the station's directory using TeamViewer, and then I'll go in remotely to be able to use that to be able to program or to reschedule with the new material.
And that just answers Sylvia's next question about connecting from home through TeamViewer. I imagine that you can do that with most playlist software, so automation.
Well, you can do it with all software. It doesn't. You can do it with your Semians, whatever. You can use TeamViewer to control the software or as a transfer media, whichever you like. A faster transfer method is to be able to Dropbox your files across, then go in with TeamViewer and be able to then do your selections and sorting for the week.
Okay. John Maisels has just reminded me that the link to the Community Tech Q&A Facebook is also made available via the Technorama website, and you can join up there. It is a closed group, so you will be asked to answer a couple of questions to get in, but that's just so we can better moderate it. But I think we might leave it there, Peter, and thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and joining us this evening. I believe that we are going to have a part 2, judging by the chat box, and then hopefully we'll have it not too far away.
Looking at installation things, this software with the directory set up, I went to Yeppoon. We spent 4 days there, including rewiring the studio so that we could actually use the voicing tracking and other systems there, and we had it all up and running in 5 days.
That quickly? Oh, that's
Yes.
great. That'd be very encouraging. I'm just going to pop back to my screen just so we can close out this webinar. And I think always the way when you get a cut down the time of the webinar and then you get a topic that everybody wants to talk about. But I think the questions have slowed down now. So thank you very much for that presentation, Peter.
No worries.
And I just want to make a couple of, I suppose, community service announcements. We do have another Technorama Tuesdays webinar coming up at the end of November. So that will be our pre-Christmas edition. It'll be happening on the 27th of November. And what I'm going to do right now is just copy the link to the webinar in the chat box so you can click on it directly. The topic is yet to be decided, but we will confirm that soon. But I just wanted to get the link out there to you all so you can get your place in that webinar and receive the reminders once the further information comes out. You can also head to the Technorama website for more information about this wonderful webinar series. If there are any other questions, please direct them to the CMTO or to Technorama, and we'd be happy to share our answers with you. And at the close of this webinar, please pop up a Facebook, I'm losing my words, Peter. A feedback form will pop up, and I'd really love it if you could complete that, because it helps us continue to make sure we know we're hitting the mark with this webinar series. And yes, if that's everything, then I will sign us off for the evening, and I wish everybody a lovely evening and hope that okay, John Maisels has just chimed in and reminds me that if you're coming to the CBAA conference, Technorama and CMTO will be running a session in the Media Lab. So that will be next week. That's happening next week. If you haven't seen any of the promotion, I think you need to sign yourself up to a few more webinars and e-news. But yeah, so that's happening next week. Jump on the Technorama website to find out more information about that. Okay, well, we're going to close it out there. I hope you enjoy your evening. Thank you very much again, Peter, for joining us and imparting your knowledge to the crew. And we hope to see you next time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I'm just keep us on the line for a little bit longer in case anyone has any other questions before they run away. Yeah, so hopefully we can schedule a part 2 not too far in the distance.
Yeah, there's a heap more on it. He does some wonderful things.
Yeah.
And most of the packages, like you can set up for a voice or a music track coming up and have an introduction for it. When the track comes up, it automatically picks that introduction up.
Oh, wonderful.
So you can say, here's a Christmas song coming up, but that will drop off at the end of Christmas, or have one Willie Nelson, and it'll be for every Willie Nelson song. And they're the things that one of the questions about how you make it sound live. That's the way in which you actually do that.
So useful. Just really stuff that I've never been able to wrap my head around. We did just have before I close down this webinar, a couple of people are asking about a replay. There will be a video that goes out to all attendees in the coming days. So stay tuned for that. You won't miss out. Okay, so I'm gonna close this off now. But so thank you, Peter.
Did you learn anything out of that?
I did. I learned a lot. I knew that you could do a fair amount, but I didn't know the specifics of what you could do with automation. And I think that it's something. What I did learn is that there's a lot of interest out there for more knowledge.
Yeah, as I said, I'm trying to break through that barrier of technical versus management. It is so damn hard. The management says it's going to save us money. The announcer's going to say we're being out of a job. And the technical guys saying it's a great system. And you've got to try and somehow put all of those things together. And considering it's been around that long, it's a real mystery why that hasn't happened.
Yeah, it is wild. But yes, this webinar series hopes to really break down that barrier.
Okay, we'll chat to you soon. Thanks very much, Emma.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. You
all.
too.
Bye.